What's up everyone? I hope you're all doing well. I have a very big update for you guys today where I want to talk about why you should remain very cautious on the charts. So let's get right into it. In the previous update, if you remember, Bitcoin had just hit our major target and support level at $52,500. And that's where I implemented the take profit 2 on my short position after having seen the reaction at our support level. So back to the charts, even though I did expect higher, as mentioned in the previous update, I didn't open along at the lows simply because this move happened on Friday night and personally I don't trade weekends. Now at this point, I'm probably going to have to review this rule because we've had a major high at our resistance on a Friday night and now we've also had a major low on our support level on a Friday night as well. In any case, we got the move higher and I was able to enter a long position a bit higher at $57,400, which is right there, with a take profit one at $59,600. The logic behind this trade was very simple. If I go on the 1 hour chart, we had the daily open on Thursday, which was right there. And when I saw an imbalance at the lows, that's where I opened my long position, again with a take profit one at $59,600. So with that said, even though I still expect a bit higher prices, we do have a lot of very strong elements that would tell us to remain cautious on the charts. The first one is very simple and is not the strongest one, but if you go under higher time frames, Bitcoin is simply putting in lower highs and lower lows. And at this point, this trend is still intact unless Bitcoin breaks back above $64,000, which at this point I personally don't believe that will happen. The second factor is that if you go on the 4 hour chart, we simply don't have an impulsive move off of the lows. In my opinion, there's no two ways about it. What we have is a first wave, a second wave, and a third wave. And what this means is that this cannot be a wave 1, and now this is a wave 2, and now Bitcoin is moving up in a wave 3, 4, and 5 for a new all-time high. The only bullish count that I was able to come up with is that, of course, this is an entire corrective move, and then this entire consolidation is ending with a triangle. So what we would have is a triangle right there, and what this means is that Bitcoin is putting in an A, B, C, D, and E, which means that even if you're bullish, you should expect another correction to the downside before we see a possible move higher, a break of $64,000, and of course a new all-time high. But at this point again, that's the only bullish count that I could find. Bitcoin is ending this correction with a triangle in an ABCDE, but apart from this, I don't see any other bullish counts. And the last element, which is the most important one by far in my opinion, is the Fed pivot that is coming next week. So if I go into full screen, what you will see is that this is the Fed funds rate that goes all the way back to the 1950s. And what happens every time? After we have a rate hike cycle, when you have the Fed pivot, this is when the economy enters into a recession, which is represented by this shaded area. Again, we have a rate hike cycle, a pause, the Fed pivot, and the economy enters into a recession. Again, a hike cycle, the Fed pivot, and you have a recession. Guess what happened in 2008 as well? You had the rate hike cycle, a pause, the Fed pivot, and then of course we had the GFC in 2008. So today, as we've had a rate hike cycle, a pause, and on Wednesday, so in 3 days, the Fed is going to pivot. In my opinion, what this means is that we'll have a recession. This time is no different than what happened every single time in history. And what this means is that all risk assets will mark to the downside. So back to the charts, with all of that said, of course, we cannot be blindly bearish and short every single move to the upside. So what levels do we have above us and what levels do we have below us? Well, above us, the first level, which is not the strongest one in my opinion, would be this hour imbalance that Bitcoin is currently rejecting, which comes in at $60,500. If I go forward in time, you can see this is where Bitcoin has topped out. So even though I do expect higher prices, if Bitcoin does drop lower from here, so does something like this maybe, you have to know which level Bitcoin is rejecting. But higher, we have a much more important level in my opinion, and this would be the high of this 4 hour imbalance at $62,100. And if you go on the daily chart, we also have the high of the daily imbalance at $62,800. So personally, what I would do here is very simply mark out an area. So between $62,800 and $62,100. And this would be the area that I'm focused on. So if Bitcoin does move up from here and it hits our resistance level and we see a reaction, personally, I will be interested in short positions. However, if Bitcoin is able to break this resistance, then we'll probably break above $64,000. And at this point, I would expect to move towards at least, let's see if I go on the 4-hour chart, I would expect to move towards at least $69,000. And that's mainly what I'm looking at to the upside. And then to the downside, in my opinion, is very simple. If Bitcoin comes back down and loses $58,400, I would expect to move much lower towards this imbalance on the 4-hour chart at $54,500. And from there, of course, if we do see a reaction, we could see a bigger bounce on the charts. And if we lose this level, I would expect to break back below $52,000 and of course a break back below $49,000 as well. So that was mainly it for the charts. Honestly, as usual, it's very simple. We have this first resistance, which is the hourly imbalance at $60,500. Below us, we have a very important level that Bitcoin cannot lose at $58,400. If we do lose it, I would expect to move towards $54,000. And if Bitcoin does move up from here, we have our major resistance just above $62,000. And again, if Bitcoin is able to break above it, I would expect to move towards $69,000. So with that said, that was mainly it for this update. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, I'm available inside the Discord. So see you soon everyone, and good luck.